Good evening, time travelers. Close your eyes for a second and let the calendar roll backward all the way to February 29th, 1888, 11:47 p.m. You're standing on the corner of Broadway and 14th Street, Manhattan. The air carries the sharp bite of coal smoke mixed with wet wool and the faint, sweet tang of horse manure steaming on cobblestones. Gas lamps hiss softly, painting everything in trembling amber halos. Carriages rattle past at a leisurely clip, their iron-rimmed wheels singing against the stones. It's late winter, but the day was almost mild. People dared to leave their overcoats unbuttoned. Now the temperature is plunging faster than anyone expected. Look up. The sky has turned the color of old pewter, thick and low, as if the clouds themselves are leaning down to eavesdrop on the city. Something big is negotiating up there, and it isn't asking permission. Before we step any further into the white dark, do me a favor. Smash that like button if you feel the chill already, and subscribe so you never miss a night like this. Drop a comment. Where in the planet are you right now? And what's the clock saying? I read every single one. All right, lower the gas a little. Let the room fade. Out on the harbor, the bell buoys clang with a slower, heavier rhythm, as though they sense what's coming. The East River mirrors 1,000 flickering lights from Brooklyn and the ferries that still haven't given up on the last crossing of the night. Deckhands curse under their breath as ropes stiffened with ice.
On shore, newsboys fold their leftover papers into triangles and stuff them inside their jackets for warmth. In the tenements along Cherry Street, mothers bank the kitchen stoves with the last scoodle of coal and whisper, "Just a little snow, nothing more." Nobody knows yet that two titanic weather systems are racing toward each other like duelists on a fog-covered field. One beast, born over the warm Gulf Stream, is hauling moisture thick enough to drown a city. The other, a Canadian hammer, is dropping temperatures 20 degrees in an hour. Their collision point? Right above your head. The brand new U.S. Signal Service, only 18 years old, has telegraph stations from Portland to Pensacola, but messages crawl along wires at the speed of a tired clerk's fingers. Barometers in Washington dipped so low yesterday that the needle nearly fell off the dial. Yet the warning that left at 4 p.m. is still bouncing between relay offices in Philadelphia. By the time it reaches Lower Manhattan, it will be irrelevant.
Midnight creeps in. The first flakes arrive, fat and lazy, melting the instant they touch a warm cheek. You flick one off your sleeve and grin. March snow always feels like nature's joke. A lamplighter on 23rd Street pauses beneath his ladder, tilts his head, and mutters, "Well, I'll be damned." The flakes are no longer melting, they're sticking. Within minutes, the sidewalks wear a thin white glove. Inside the Astor House saloon, old stockbrokers nurse brandies and laugh about a dusting. On the elevated trains, conductors stamp their feet and tell passengers, "We'll be moving slow tonight, folks. Rails are frosting." Nobody panics. New York has seen storms before. But out over Staten Island, telegraph operators lean closer to their instruments. The wires are singing an eerie, high-pitched whine, St. Elmo's fire for the electrical age. Tiny blue sparks dance along the copper. Messages fragment into bursts of static. Pressure, falling, FAS, 0V.
Then silence. Ice has armored every line from here to Albany. Back on the street where you stand, the world is undergoing a metamorphosis in real time. The brownstones across the avenue dissolve behind a moving veil. Footprints you made 10 minutes ago are already gone. The wind finds its voice. Low at first, almost conversational, then sharpens into a blade that slices between buildings and steals your breath. A beat cop in his heavy wool helmet pauses under a lamp. His mustache is crusted white. "Best get indoors, friend," he says, not unkindly. "This one's got teeth." You nod, tip your bowler, and watch him disappear into a tunnel of swirling snow. By 1 a.m., the city's heartbeat is faltering. The last horse car on Bleecker Street gives up. The animals refuse to pull. Their driver unhitches them and leads them away by the bridle, their hooves clopping uncertainly on a street already 6 inches deep. Overhead, the elevated trains grind to a halt between stations, leaving passengers stranded 30 feet above the abyss.
In a cold water flat on Rivington Street, a father stuffs Yiddish newspapers, yesterday's forward, into the gaps around his window frame. His wife fills every pot with water because the standpipe in the hall will freeze solid by dawn. Down in the cellar, the janitor shovels the last of the coal into the furnace and whispers a prayer that it lasts until Tuesday. You, meanwhile, have reached your own doorway on West 19th. You pause on the stoop. The silence is unearthly. No hooves, no hawkers, no drunken song from the corner saloon. Only the wind, moaning like a living thing, and the soft, relentless hush of snow devouring the city one layer at a time. You brush the accumulation from your shoulders, already 4 inches in 40 minutes, and step inside. Behind you, the storm closes the door on 1888's last ordinary night. Tomorrow, this will be remembered as the Great White Hurricane. 55 inches of snow. Winds clocked at 80 miles per hour on Block Island. 200 dead in New York alone. 400 across the Northeast. Telegraph and train networks paralyzed for a week. A city that thought it had tamed nature, forced to its knees by a blizzard that rewrote record books still used in 2025. But right now, at 1:17 a.m., March 1, 1888, you shut the door, hang up your coat, and have no idea that you're living inside history's most perfectly disguised catastrophe. You shut the door behind you, kick the snow from your boots, and the latch clicks like the closing of a coffin lid. Inside, the parlor clock keeps its stubborn tick-tock, the only proof that time hasn't frozen solid. The tabby on the rocking chair opens one golden eye, decides the world can end without her help, and goes back to sleep.
Outside, the wind has discovered a new register, a low, bone-deep moan that climbs into a scream and then drops again, as if the sky itself is learning how to roar. You draw the heavy drapes, telling yourself brick and mortar can still win against whatever is gathering out there. You think of the people who have no drapes to draw, The milkmen already harnessed at 1 a.m., their horses snorting steam into the dark. The elevated train motormen who kissed their wives goodbye for the night shift. The Staten Island ferry captain who promised his deckhand one more run, then we tie up. They are all tiny sparks drifting toward a white furnace. Across the Harlem River, a locomotive on the New York and Harlem Railroad gives one lonely whistle as it thunders over the high bridge. The sound reaches you thin and mournful, then vanishes, swallowed by a gust that rattles every pane in the house. By sunrise, that train will be a frozen sculpture, its passengers burning seat cushions to stay alive.
Down on Bleecker Street, a half-frozen violinist snaps his case shut. Teufelswetter, he spits in German, devil's weather, and disappears into an alley that will be his tomb by noon. Even the rats have voted with their feet. Not one whisker twitches along the baseboards tonight. 2:17 a.m. The thermometer nailed outside the drugstore on 6th Avenue reads 6 degrees Fahrenheit and still diving. It will bottom out at -3 degrees Fahrenheit before the sun bothers to show up. The snowflakes have shrunk into needle-sharp grauple that peppers your face like birdshot when you dare to crack the door. A newsboy, 12, maybe 13, drags his canvas sack through drifts already knee-high on a man. His lips are blue, but he's still humming After the Ball Between Chattering Teeth. Historians will never learn his name. He is one of the 200 New Yorkers who will not see Monday.
In a tidy brownstone on East 37th, city editor Charles Chapin scribbles in his diary by candlelight. The silence is unnatural. The air feels evacuated, as though the storm has sucked the soul out of the streets. That diary, leather cracked and pages foxed, now rests in the New York Historical Society, one of the only voices that survived the night intact. You can't resist. You open the window 2 inches. Instantly, the room fills with the smell of the open Atlantic, salt, iron, and something electric. The wind rips the curtains from your hand and slaps your cheek with ice. Somewhere above, a loose signboard tears free and cartwheels down the block like a drunken ghost. You slam the sash and lean against it, heart hammering. Sleep comes in fits. Each time you drift off, a gust shakes the building hard enough to jolt you awake. The last sound you register is a rhythmic banging, someone's shutter 3 stories up, ripping itself to pieces. Then nothing.
5:42 a.m. You wake to a light in the room that isn't light at all. A cold, sourceless glow, the color of a corpse candle. For one confused second, you think the sun has risen behind frosted glass. Then you pull the curtain. There is no sky. There is no street. There is only a boiling, churning wall of white that presses against the pane as if it wants in. The glass bows inward with every gust. You half expect it to shatter and pour snow across the bed. The storm has grown a voice overnight, a deep, relentless howl, threaded with shrieks that rise and fall like a pack of wolves circling the house. You rest your palm on the window. The cold burns. Your breath blooms and vanishes. Downstairs, the front door is drifted shut to the knob. When you force it open 6 inches, a miniature avalanche tumbles across the rug. 2 feet of snow in the vestibule alone, and still falling so thick you cannot see the house opposite. You step back, slam the door,
and feel the walls shrink. The ceiling lowers, the room is suddenly a coffin with wallpaper. The stove has eaten every lump of coal you own. The fire crouches, sullen and orange, throwing off just enough heat to keep the tea kettle from freezing solid. Every breath you exhale hangs in the air like cigar smoke before it drops in glittering crystals. From somewhere far away comes the frantic clang of a bell. Maybe the ferry still trying to cross the bay. Maybe Trinity Church towers swaying in the gale. The sound warps and stretches until it no longer resembles anything human. You are sealed inside a snow globe that a furious god has decided to shake forever. Meteorologists in 2025 still argue over the anemometer readings from that morning. The official U.S. Signal Service Cup anemometer on the Equitable Life Building pegged a gust of 84 miles per hour before the instrument tore loose and vanished into the blizzard. Block Island logged 81 miles per hour sustained. Either number qualifies as hurricane force. The term nor'easter hadn't been coined yet, but that's what this was. A Category 1 hurricane wearing winter's clothing. Barometric pressure bottomed out at 28.93 inches in New York Harbor, the lowest ever recorded in the city until Superstorm Sandy 124 years later. The storm surge drove walls of water up the East River, freezing solid the instant they retreated. But all you know, standing there in your stocking feet while the kettle hisses its last, is that the world you knew has been erased. The city that never sleeps has been gagged, blindfolded, and buried alive. And the snow is still falling. The beast outside has no name yet, only a pulse. Warm Gulf air, heavy as wet silk, climbs 20,000 feet and slams into a Canadian ice wall moving south at express train speed. Where they kiss, the sky gives birth to something biblical. Atlantic moisture pours in like gasoline on a bonfire. By 7 a.m., the storm has grown its own weather inside the weather. Thundersnow that flashes blue across the rooftops. Lightning that forks through blizzards and freezes mid-crack. In a red brick house on Dean Street, Brooklyn, an amateur meteorologist named Walter K. Hale ties a crimson silk ribbon to his chimney before dawn. He wants a marker for posterity. By 10 a.m., the ribbon is a memory swallowed by 48 inches of snow. When the thaw finally comes 2 weeks later, the ribbon is gone forever, snapped off and blown clear to Queens, some say. The house still stands in 2025. The ribbon is urban legend.
You shuffle to the rear window, desperate for any scrap of horizon. Nothing. Only a living alabaster fog that pulses like cream stirred by an invisible hand. The wind is no longer wind, it is architecture. Solid columns of air that punch the building and retreat, punch and retreat. Inside that roar, you catch splintered noises. Crack! A telegraph pole on Fifth Avenue surrendering like a rifle shot. Boom! The deep body blow of a cornice shearing off a 6-story building. A single, panicked horse scream that rises, cuts off, and never finishes. Down in the tenements of the Five Points, entire families crowd into one room because the hallway is -10 degrees Fahrenheit and dropping. They burn stair banisters, piano legs, the landlord's eviction notices. The air turns acrid with green wood and printer's ink. A little girl on Eldred Street ties her mother's scarf across her nose and mouth so the frost won't bite her lungs. Her cough sounds like tearing paper. Up on the 9th Avenue L, train number 41 is a frozen sarcophagus. The motorman abandoned the controls at 4 a.m. The third rail is coated in 2 inches of ice. Inside the cars, 50 passengers pass a single flask of rye and take turns smashing seat cushions into the pot-bellied stove someone pried loose. They will be there for 36 hours. 2 of them will lose fingers to frostbite before rescuers tunnel through on Tuesday. Out in the Narrows, the ferry Observer is locked in ice 300 yards from the Staten Island slip. Her captain keeps ringing the bell every 90 seconds so the crew doesn't lose hope. The sound drifts across the bay like a funeral knell, reaching Brooklyn as a faint, metallic heartbeat. You stand in your kitchen, candle cupped in both hands, feeling the weird shame of being warm while the city dies by degrees. You picture the milkman who left his stable on West 17th at 3 a.m. His wagon was found upside down on 8th Avenue, horse still in the traces, both frozen solid, eyelids wide with surprise. You picture Patrolman Philip Mahoney, last seen guiding a lost family toward a church on 28th Street. His body will be discovered in April, upright against a lamppost, helmet still strapped on, one arm forever pointing the way home. The death toll will be printed as over 400, but that is a polite lie told by newspapers that stopped counting when the morgues overflowed. Rural hamlets in Connecticut burned their records for heat. Corpses surfaced in June hayfields, still clutching handbags or lunch pails. The storm killed quietly and kept its own counsel. Yet even now, at the height of the rage, beauty leaks through the cracks. Cast iron balconies on Broome Street wear bridal veils of rime. Every fire escape is a crystal cathedral. The Brooklyn Bridge, only 5 years old, has turned into a harp of ice. The wind plucks its cables and the whole structure sings in a minor key you can hear clear to Manhattan. Thump, thump, thump. Someone is on your roof. Freeze. A neighbor trying to clear the chimney flue before carbon monoxide claims another family? You shout upward. Hello, you all right? But the storm eats your voice and spits it out as snow.
The mantle clock keeps its aristocratic tick, indifferent to the apocalypse. Tick, tick, tick. As if daring the century to keep its promises. Modern scholars argue over the real killer. Was it the -3 Fahrenheit wind chill that stopped hearts in minutes? Was it the 50 to 80 mile per hour gusts that hurled grown men 30 feet into drifts? Or was it the collapse of every system the Gilded Age trusted? Telegraph, steam heat, horse cars, ferries, all strangled at once. The answer is yes, all of it. The blizzard didn't just break the city. It exposed the city as a paper giant. Knock, knock, knock. The wall between you and Mrs. O'Donnell next door. Your secret code, 2 for alive, 1 for help. You rap back, knock, 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 and picture her smiling through chapped lips, her orange tabby wedged under the ironing board like a furry hot water bottle. Another hour dissolves. Sunlight is a rumor no one believes anymore. You light your last candle stub. The flame flattens sideways, sucked toward every crack the wind can find. The room smells of tallow, wet plaster, and the ghost of yesterday's coffee. You laugh once,
a short, cracked sound, remembering Friday's New York Herald weather column. Fair and milder, with rising temperatures through Tuesday. The storm hears you. It answers by piling another 6 inches against the door while you blink. The house itself is breathing now. Every joist creaks in slow tidal rhythm. The shingles drum a war beat. If you close your eyes, you can almost feel the Atlantic rolling in, wave after wave of whitewater breaking against the bricks. You settle into the horsehair chair, blanket to your chin, and let the half-sleep take you. The dangerous kind where you dream you're warm, dream you're walking downtown, dream the bells of Trinity are ringing for Sunday service.
Outside, the great white hurricane keeps its ancient appointment with the city, patient as glaciers, hungry as wolves, and absolutely certain of victory. Monday, March 12, 1888, 7:03 a.m. You surface from a dream of open windows and lilac breeze into a silence so complete it feels like drowning in cotton. The stove is a cold iron corpse. Your breath hangs in silver balloons that drift downward and shatter on the quilt. When you touch the window pane, the frost snaps like thin toffee under your nails. Pull the curtain. There is no opposite building. There is no street. There is only a pale, glowing cliff of snow that rises past the second-story sash and leans against the glass as if listening to your heartbeat. The city has been unmade and replaced with something lunar. You try the window. It laughs at you. Ice has welded it shut tighter than any locksmith. A single flake, fine as table salt, sneaks through a hairline crack and melts on your wrist like a tear. Downstairs, the front door might as well be the gate to a pharaoh's tomb. You throw your weight against it. The drift on the other side answers with a dull, stubborn thud. 48 inches of hardened snow have turned your brownstone into a buried seed. You are not alone in this. Every doorway from the Battery to Harlem is soldered shut. Every family is an island in a white archipelago. The telegraph lines that stitched the nation together lie in glittering heaps from Portland to Richmond. Porcelain insulators smashed, copper wires coiled like dead snakes. For the first time since 1837, New York cannot speak to Boston. The stock exchange might as well be on Mars. Up on rooftops, the stubborn ones are already at work. A retired sea captain on West 69th lashes a crimson tablecloth to his chimney.
A school teacher on Rivington Street rigs bed sheets into semaphore flags. 2 short flutters for "We have coal," 3 long for "Send bread." No one is sure the messages are seen, but arms keep waving, because hope is lighter than despair and easier to lift against the wind. You think of the world before wires, how a single storm could shrink the planet back to the size of whatever you could shout or see. 2 doors down, old Mr. Lindquist might be freezing beneath his army blanket, and you would never know. The thought sits in your stomach like a stone. Temperature? The official thermometer on the roof of the Equitable Building froze at -9 degrees Fahrenheit and then cracked clean in half. Wind chill tables do not exist yet, but sailors on the tall ships in the harbor know the truth. Exposed flesh goes numb in 90 seconds, black in 5 minutes. Whatever the mercury says, it is cold enough to murder.
Somewhere, a chimney coughs, thin gray smoke threading upward like a prayer flag. You smell it before you see it, the sweet, bitter perfume of someone else's survival.
Jealousy flares. Then shame. You kneel, coax the stove with yesterday's Police Gazette and a chair leg you've been saving for this exact betrayal. The kindling catches with a grateful pop, and suddenly the room has a pulse again. You fill the kettle with snow scraped from the windowsill. When it boils, the tea tastes of iron and ozone, as if the storm itself has been distilled. Steam ghosts rise, sketching faces on the ceiling. Your mother, the newsboy from Saturday night, the horse that used to pull the 14th Street omnibus. Out in the streets that no longer exist, the snow came in brigades. First a gentle brigade, then a screaming one, then a silent one that simply never left. On Montague Street in Brooklyn, Dr. Jeremiah O'Leary stepped off his stoop at 8:15 a.m. to answer a maternity call. He made it 12 feet.
They dug him out on Wednesday, still upright, medical bag frozen to his glove, spectacles coated in hoarfrost like lace. Yet the city, even buried, refuses to die prettily. At night the drifts glow, rose, pearl, corpse blue, lit from below by gas lamps entombed under 6 feet of crystal. A minister's wife on Madison Avenue wrote to her sister in Philadelphia, a letter that traveled by sled, then train, then another sled. The heavens have fallen in shards of diamond, and God has lit them from within so we may not despair. On Bleecker and MacDougall, a baker named Vincenzo tunnels outward like a badger. By Tuesday afternoon, he has carved a white catacomb from his shop to the curb. Customers crawl single file on hands and knees, emerging inside the oven-warm store, dusted in sugar and snow. He keeps a ledger. March 13, sold 47 loaves, 19 through the ice hole. A Harper's Weekly artist will sketch the tunnel later that week. The engraving still hangs in the Tenement Museum in 2025. You sit by your reborn fire, cup cradled in both hands, listening to the house settle deeper into its grave.
Creak, groan. A soft, continuous sigh as another inch packs itself against the roof. The storm is gone polite again, almost tender, the way a cat plays with a mouse it has already decided to kill. Somewhere out there, a boot sole scrapes over crusted snow, once, twice, then silence. Someone is still trying to get home. You press your forehead to the cold pane and whisper the only prayer left. Let them make it. Let us all make it. The snow does not answer. It simply keeps falling, patient as debt, beautiful as forgiveness, and absolutely certain that time is on its side. Tuesday, March 13th, 1888. Sometime between night and whatever comes after night when the sun gives up. You wake with your cheek glued to the wallpaper by your own frozen breath. For one heartbeat, you think the harmonica next door is still playing. But no, it's only the wind worrying a loose tin gutter, squeezing out the same 3 mournful notes over and over, like a dying soldier's mouth organ. Press your ear to the plaster. Nothing. Then, faint as a heartbeat under snow, 2 soft knocks. You answer with 2 of your own.
The wall between you and Mrs. O'Donnell is the last telegraph line still working in North America. You are living inside the moment that rewrote America's relationship with the sky. In Washington, red-faced congressmen are already shouting about the Signal Service's failure. By June, weather will be yanked out of the Army's hands and civilianized. By 1891, storm warnings will fly as colored flags from every harbor from Eastport to Galveston. By 2025, children will learn the blizzard of '88 the way they learned Pearl Harbor.
The day the nation realized the atmosphere could kill faster than any army. But right now, you only know that your coal scuttle holds 6 lumps and the bread has turned to stone. You pace the 4 corners of your prison, candle stub trembling in a Chianti bottle. Light slides across windows that no longer deserve the name. Each pane is a blind eye crusted shut by 2 feet of snow. Somewhere above, a roof surrenders with a cannon-shot crump that rattles your teeth. You picture an avalanche of shingles and rafters pouring into someone's parlor like frozen Niagara. Inventory: half-loaf rye, hard as mahogany. 3-ounce salt pork gone gray. 1 candle, 2 matches, 6 coals. 1 harmonica you don't know how to play, but press to your lips anyway, just to feel something vibrate. Out in the countryside, cattle stand in rows like white statues, snow to their bellies, eyes frozen open. Farmers who laughed at city slickers now chop holes in barn roofs to drop hay to animals they can no longer reach. The line between tenement and prairie has vanished. Everyone is simply meat, trying not to freeze. Time has liquefied. The clock insists it is 9:14, but that feels like a prank. Minutes stretch like taffy. An hour can age a man 10 years. A survivor on East 10th will write, "Tuesday lasted 40 days and 40 nights. The calendar lied." Some people break. A banker on Gramercy Park is found rocking in his cellar, reciting stock prices to sacks of flour. Others knit the hours into something almost beautiful. Neighbors rap Morse code through walls. SOS wasn't invented yet, but they invent it anyway. Children turn coal scuttles into sleds and race across buried parlors while mothers laugh through cracked lips. You rebuild the fire with the leg of a chair you once swore was mahogany. The varnish blazes blue and sweet, smelling of Sunday dinners and better days. Snowmelt tea tastes of iron and chimney soot, but it is hot, and hot is a miracle. Outside, the city has become Antarctica with brownstones. Fifth Avenue is a canyon whose walls glitter rose gold when a stray shaft of sunlight finally stabs through. Chimneys poke up like periscopes of drowning submarines. Here and there, a brave soul has tunneled upward through his own roof and stands on a white peak, blinking at a sun that looks close enough to touch, yet warms nothing. On West 83rd, a butcher named Otto digs a chimney trench straight down through 4 feet of snow, emerges like a groundhog, and roars with laughter that echoes for blocks. Someone answers with a cheer, then another. For 5 minutes, the Upper West Side sounds almost human again. You hear scraping overhead, slow, deliberate. A shovel? A rescuer? You climb onto the table, bang the ceiling with the poker. "I am here!" The scraping stops, then resumes, closer. A muffled voice, thick with German. "Hold tight, friend! Almost through!" Tears freeze on your cheeks before they can fall. By noon on this endless Tuesday, Manhattan looks like a relief map of the Alps made by a drunken god. Wall Street is a luge run. Central Park's sheep meadow has swallowed an entire herd of hansom cabs. Only the horses' nostrils show, steaming like volcanoes. Milk wagons lie on their sides like dead beetles. Yet the baker on Bleecker still sells loaves through his ice tunnel. And customers crawl to him on bleeding knees, because warm bread is worth more than gold. Evening arrives without permission. The wind drops its weapons and simply breathes, slow and tidal. Silence falls so complete you can hear the snowflakes land. Far across the river, a single bell begins. St. Michael's, maybe, or the ferry still locked in ice.
tolling the hour no one can name. The sound drifts over the buried city, like warm oil poured on wounded water. You lie on the rug beside the stove's last glow, one hand on the harmonica, one hand on the wall that still answers your knocks. The house creaks around you, a wooden ship settling into coral. Tomorrow the sun will come back angry and bright, turning every drift into a mirror that blinds the city. Tomorrow men with ropes around their waists will tunnel street by street, knocking on doors that open onto tombs or miracles.
Tomorrow, New York will rise shivering and broke and furious and utterly, gloriously alive. But tonight, there is only the soft crackle of the last coal, the slow heartbeat of the wall beside you, and the bell across the water telling every buried soul the same quiet truth. You are not forgotten. Hold on. Morning is coming. Wednesday, March 14, 1888. The morning the world forgot how to move. You wake to the smell of someone else's house burning. Not the sharp crackle of a hearth, but the slow, greasy smoke of a stove that has eaten its own chimney. Somewhere 2 blocks west, a family has lost the fight against carbon monoxide. You will never know their names. Press your ear to the wall. Silence answers. Thick, cotton-stuffed silence. Mrs. O'Donnell's harmonica has gone quiet. You knock twice. No reply. Your fist leaves a white print of frost on the wallpaper. Outside, the storm has put on a new mask. Sunlight so bright it feels like punishment.
You claw the window open 4 inches, and the glare stabs straight into your brain. The city has vanished and been replaced by a desert made of knives. Every surface throws backlight hard enough to blind. Snow dunes rise 15-20 feet high where streets used to be. The brownstone opposite is only a roof with a chimney sticking out like a snorkel. 6th Avenue is a white canyon whose walls shimmer pale rose and corpse blue. Down in that canyon lies the Baker's Bell. When the thaw comes, Vincenzo will dig straight down through 8 feet of snow and find his milk wagon perfectly preserved, horse still in traces, driver folded forward as if praying to the dashboard, both encased in translucent ice. He will close the bakery for 3 days and never speak of it again. You force the back door.
It opens with a sigh, exhaling a miniature avalanche across the kitchen floor. Cold pours in like liquid metal. You step onto what used to be your stoop and sink to the waist instantly. The snow bears your weight for 1 second, then gives way with a soft whump that dumps you chest deep. You laugh, actually laugh, because the alternative is screaming. Voices drift across the rooftops, thin and metallic, as if spoken through tin horns. "Hello, the Blue House. Coal here, 2 buckets for a loaf. Anyone seen Patrolman Doyle?" The city has moved upstairs. Ropes stretch from chimney to chimney like clotheslines strung across the Alps. A woman in a red shawl slides down a plank bridge from her 2nd-story window to her neighbor's, carrying a coffee pot like a priest with holy water. On 10th Street, a policeman has lashed a length of stovepipe between 2 tenements and shouts through it in a voice that booms like God's own megaphone. "Mrs. Flanagan, your daughter's safe at the convent. Repeat, safe." Someone answers with a cheer that echoes for blocks.
The old New York, sidewalks, shop fronts, deadlines, stock tickers, has been canceled. In its place,
A vertical village where second-floor windows are front doors and rooftops are town squares. Children tunnel between houses like prairie dogs. A priest on 23rd Street celebrates Mass on a flat roof, congregation kneeling in snow up to their hips, the host raised against a sky so blue it hurts to look at. You tie your only bedsheet to the chimney and wave it like a surrender flag that means the opposite. Within minutes, a rope sails across the gulf between buildings. Attached is a tin cup containing 3 lumps of coal and a note in pencil. "Stay warm, friend," by J. McSweeney, 214 W 19th. You cry without noticing until the tears freeze on your cheeks. The silence that follows the storm is not peace. It is the silence of a battlefield after the guns stop. Telegraph clerks sit at their sounders, tapping phantom messages into wires that end in broken porcelain 30 miles north. Wall Street is a white plain with a single set of footprints leading to the sub-treasury door and none coming back. The ferries are locked in ice so thick you could drive a locomotive across the Hudson if any locomotive could move. Rural New England has simply disappeared. In Saratoga, only church steeples and weather vanes mark where villages used to be. A farmer in Vermont spent 6 hours digging with a frying pan to reach his neighbor, emerged black with frostbite, and found the man sitting on a hay bale calmly smoking. They shared a jug of cider without speaking, then crawled back into their separate tombs. Back in the city, you actually climb, out your own window using a ladder made from your bed frame. You stand on your roof for the first time in your life and see Manhattan transformed into a glittering mountain range. Smoke curls from 1,000 chimneys like signal fires from a lost civilization. Far downtown, the Brooklyn Bridge towers rise out of the snow sea, cables humming in the wind like harpstrings. Someone has tied a pair of red long johns to the highest flagpole on the Equitable Building. They flap once, twice, then hang limp. The city's way of saying, "We are still here." You shield your eyes and look east. The sun is a white coin hammered flat against a sky the color of a fresh bruise. It gives no warmth, only light, enough to see how completely the world has been rewritten. You whisper the only prayer that fits. Let the digging start soon. Let the bells ring again. Let tomorrow be a day when doors open outward instead of inward. Far below, buried under 15 feet of snow, a milk wagon bell gives one last, muffled tinkle, as if the horse itself is reminding the city it still has a pulse. You tie yourself to the chimney with your belt, sit on the shingles, and wait for the sound of shovels. The great white hurricane has had its say. Now it is New York's turn. Thursday, March 15th, 1888. The first day the sun is allowed to win. You open your eyes to the sound of water torturing wood.
Drip, drip, drip. Each droplet lands on the tin plate you placed under the leak at 3 a.m., a tiny, perfect bell counting the seconds since the world decided to thaw. You crawl to the window and scrape a porthole in the frost. Manhattan is bleeding light. Icicles the length of swords hang from every cornice, flashing like chandeliers in a palace abandoned mid-ball. The snowbanks blow peach and rose where the sun touches them, as if the city has been set on fire from the inside. Outside your door, your actual door, not the window you've been using for 3 days, someone is singing. A man's voice, raw but defiant, carries the chorus of Sweet Betsy from Pike across the rooftops. Others join in, off-key from every direction. It is the first time since Saturday that New York remembers it has lungs.
You step onto the balcony, and the air hits like champagne, cold enough to sting, clean enough to make you dizzy. The snow is knee-deep here, waist-deep there, 20 feet deep where yesterday's drifts decided to become mountains.
Across the avenue, Mrs. O'Donnell stands on her own roof in a scarlet shawl, waving both arms like a shipwrecked sailor who has finally spotted a sail. She is alive. You wave back until your shoulders ache. Down in the street that isn't a street anymore, a tunnel has appeared. 6 feet high, perfectly round, glowing aquamarine where the sun strikes its walls. A boy pops out of it on a sled made from a baking tray, shrieking with joy. Behind him comes a parade, mothers carrying babies, old men with canes used as ice picks, a baker balancing a tray of rolls on his head like a crown. They're moving house to house through the catacombs they carved while the city slept, trading coffee for coal, gossip for matches, laughter for the simple miracle of another heartbeat. On 23rd Street, a policeman is tied a red tablecloth to a broom handle and marches along the roofline like a color bearer at Gettysburg. Every time he passes a chimney, he bellows, "Roll call! Sound off if you're breathing!" From every direction come answers. Whistles, bells, pots bang together, one operatic soprano belting "Danny Boy" until the whole block joins in.
You climb down your own tunnel, someone dug it while you slept, and emerge into a world turned inside out. The sidewalk is now a ceiling. Shop signs dangle 20 feet above your head like strange stalactites. A hansom cab sticks out of a drift at a 45-degree angle, its horse long gone, its driver's hat still perched jauntily on the roof. At the corner of 6th and 19th, a handwritten newspaper has been nailed to a lamppost that now leans like the Tower of Pisa. The Blizzard Bulletin, March 15th. Printed on a toy press with 2 broken letters. 42 inches on the level, 58 in drifts. Telegraphed to Philadelphia, restored at 4:17 a.m. First train from Albany, expected Tuesday, maybe. Lost. 1 bay mare, answers to Daisy. Found. 1 baby boy, red hair, healthy lungs. Reward for news of Patrolman P. Mahoney, badge 342. Underneath, someone has scrawled in charcoal, "We are cold, broke, and magnificent." A boy, no older than 10, tugs your sleeve. "Mister, you got any coffee? Ma'll trade you half a loaf still warm." You follow him through 3 more tunnels, past kitchens glowing with stoves, past parlors where grandmothers knit by candlelight, past a doctor setting a broken wrist on a dining table, and emerge into a basement bakery that smells like heaven after apocalypse. The baker, flour in his beard like Santa Claus gone rogue, hands you a roll so hot it steams in the frigid air. "Eat," he says. "The city's awake now." Back on the surface, the digging has begun in earnest. Gangs of men with ropes around their waists attack the drifts like miners hunting gold. Every shovelful thrown skyward catches the sun and explodes into diamonds. Children sled down the mountains they once feared. A brass band, somehow, has assembled on the corner of Broadway and 14th. They play Marching Through Georgia, while the trombonist's slide freezes solid between notes. You pass a wall where someone has painted in lampblack, "We survived the sky falling." Underneath, fresh handprints in every size form a chain that disappears around the corner.
By noon, the first telegram reaches City Hall. "Boston sends greetings. Stop. We thought you were dead. Stop. Glad you are not. Stop." The cheer that rises is loud enough to crack ice. You find yourself in a bread line that stretches across 3 rooftops. The woman ahead of you is the same scarlet-shawled neighbor who waved this morning. She presses a tin cup of coffee into your hands. Real coffee, thick as tar, sweet enough to make you cry. "Drink," she says. "We're all millionaires today." Later, much later,
Historians will argue over death tolls and barometric readings. They will name the storm the Great White Hurricane and pin it to maps with red arrows. They will credit it with birthing modern weather forecasting, underground cables, snowplows pulled by horses wearing leather boots. But on this Thursday, in March 1888, none of that matters. What matters is the sound of shovels singing, the smell of bread rising through ice tunnels, the sight of a city climbing out of its own grave, one human hand at a time.
You stand on your roof at sunset. The sky is the color of peach ice cream. Every icicle blazes like a torch. Far below, the streets are still buried, but above them, New York is roaring back to life, raw-throated, half-frozen, and absolutely triumphant. Someone starts singing Auld Lang Syne. By the time the second verse rolls around, 10,000 voices have joined in, echoing off the drifts, bouncing off the sky, shaking loose avalanches of diamonds. Should old acquaintance be forgot? Not today. Not ever. The Great Blizzard of 1888 is over, and New York, battered, laughing, magnificent, has remembered how to be a city again. Friday, March 16, 1888, the day the city learns how to dig itself a new heart. You wake to the sound of the world being born again, one shovelful at a time. Clang, scrape, grunt, laugh. The rhythm is clumsy, human, perfect. Outside your door, a narrow canyon has appeared overnight, shoulder-wide, glistening like the inside of a glacier. Someone has chalked arrows on the ice walls every 10 feet. Left, breadless way. Right, coal 3 doors down. Up, roof for sale, slightly used. You step into the trench and the sun hits you like a standing ovation. For the first time in a week, you cast a shadow.
The street is a war zone of white. Drifts tower 15 feet high, their sides carved into cliffs and caves. Here and there, a horse's nose pokes out like a periscope. A derby hat sits on a snow mound as if its owner simply evaporated. Children have turned the battlefield into a playground, sledding down mountains that used to be sidewalks, building forts out of frozen carriage seats. At the corner of 19th and 7th, a human chain snakes across the intersection. 50 people linked arm in arm, passing buckets of snow hand to hand like a fire brigade in reverse.
The last man in line hurls each bucket upward. It explodes into glitter that drifts down like man-made snow. Someone has tied a bell to the bucket, so every toss rings out. Ding, 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 keeping time for the whole city. You fall in behind a girl no older than 12. She wears her father's overcoat like a ball gown and sings "Drill, ye terriers, drill" in a voice that could shatter ice. By the time the chorus comes around, the entire chain is singing. The snow flies faster. A policeman on stilts, actual wooden stilts, strides above the drifts like a blue-coated stork, shouting directions through a megaphone made from a traffic cone. "Clear to the hydrant, lads. Water mains froze solid. Gonna need every drop when she thaws." On 23rd Street, the Metropolitan Museum has become a refugee camp with better art. Families sleep beneath Egyptian sarcophagi. A little boy sits cross-legged in front of a marble statue of Apollo, sharing his biscuit with the god. "Still cold?" he asks the statue. Apollo, being stone, does not complain. Down in a church basement on Broome Street, Father O'Callahan ladles bean soup thick enough to stand a spoon in. The organist, fingers swollen from frostbite, plays "Nearer, My God, to Thee" so slowly it sounds like a lullaby for giants. Every time the bellows wheeze, steam rises from 100 bowls and meets the music halfway.
The last man in line hurls each bucket upward. It explodes into glitter that drifts down like man-made snow. Someone has tied a bell to the bucket, so every toss rings out, ding, 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 keeping time for the whole city. You fall in behind a girl no older than 12. She wears her father's overcoat like a ball gown and sings "Drill ye terriers, drill" in a voice that could shatter ice. By the time the chorus comes around, the entire chain is singing. The snow flies faster. A policeman on stilts, actual wooden stilts, strides above the drifts like a blue-coated stork, shouting directions through a megaphone made from a traffic cone. "Clear to the hydrant, lads! Water mains froze solid. Gonna need every drop when she thaws." On 23rd Street, the Metropolitan Museum has become a refugee camp with better art. Families sleep beneath Egyptian sarcophagi. A little boy sits cross-legged in front of a marble statue of Apollo, sharing his biscuit with the god. "Still cold?" he asks the statue. Apollo, being stone, does not complain. Down in a church basement on Broome Street, Father O'Callahan ladles bean soup thick enough to stand a spoon in. The organist, fingers swollen from frostbite, plays "Nearer, My God, to Thee" so slowly it sounds like a lullaby for giants. Every time the bellows wheeze, steam rises from 100 bowls and meets the music halfway.
You shovel until your palms blister, then keep going, because stopping feels like betrayal. A woman you have never seen before presses a hot potato into your bare hand. "Eat," she says. "You're no good to us frozen." Her name is Rosa. By sunset, you will know her children's names, her mother's recipe for stracciatella, and the fact that she once danced with a Prussian count in 1876. The blizzard has made you family. At 3:17 p.m., a cheer goes up from 14th Street to Harlem. The telegraph sings again. One copper wire, spliced together with a pocket knife and prayer, stretches from City Hall to Brooklyn. The first message tapped out is only 7 words. "New York, still here, stop. Send coffee, stop." The reply comes instantly. "Coffee on the way, stop. Love, Boston." Men throw their hats, those who still have hats, 20 feet into the air. Women cry without bothering to wipe their faces. Children ask if coffee is a new saint. By dusk, the city glows like a jack-o'-lantern carved from ice. Every window that still has glass flickers with candlelight. Every chimney that still stands puffs victory smoke. On Broadway, someone has rigged a makeshift stage out of packing crates. A violinist with 9 fingers saws out "Home Sweet Home" while a crowd of hundreds sways arm in arm, boots crunching in perfect unison.
You stand among them, throat raw from singing, shoulders sunburned from light reflected off a million mirrors of snow. Someone passes a flask of something that burns all the way down and warms you for the first time since March 11. Above you, the sky is the color of the inside of a peach. The moon, almost full, hangs low and smug, as if it knew all along we would make it. A little girl tugs your coat. "Mister," she whispers, eyes wide, "is tomorrow going to be loud again?" You kneel so you're eye level with her. "Yes, darling," you say. "Tomorrow, the city's going to roar so loud they'll hear it in Philadelphia." She smiles, showing a gap where a front tooth used to be, and runs off to tell her mother the good news. Later, much later, you will read the statistics. 55 inches of snow in Manhattan. 400 dead, probably more. $25 million in damage, $1888. 200 miles of telegraph wire down. One city reborn. But tonight, there are no numbers. Only the scrape of shovels slowing to a lullaby. Only the smell of bread drifting across rooftops. Only the sound of 10,000 voices refusing to be buried.
You lean your shovel against a lamppost that now stands in the middle of what used to be a street. Someone has chalked across the snow at your feet. We dug our way back to each other. You add underneath in letters big enough to be read from the next block, and we'll do it again if we have to. Then you pick up your shovel because there is still a city under there somewhere. And tomorrow the sun will rise on a New York that remembers how to be loud, how to be warm, how to be alive. The great white hurricane is finished. The great human hurricane has only just begun. Saturday, March 17th, 1888. The day the city learned to live underground before it remembered how to live above. You wake inside a sapphire. The light that sneaks through your window has traveled down a tunnel of snow so pure it turns every pane into stained glass. Somewhere, a church bell tries to ring and gives up halfway, the sound muffled like a fist in cotton. Outside, Manhattan has become a honeycomb lit from within. You dress in every sweater you own and descend the ice staircase someone carved while you slept.
Each step is a perfect cube of snow, glowing turquoise in the morning. At the bottom, you step into Frost Street. Population 412, elevation -6 feet. Admission, 1 smile or 1 joke, whichever you can spare. The avenue that used to carry carriages now carries voices. They bounce off the snow walls and arrive at your ears a heartbeat late, giving every conversation a dreamy echo. A sign made from a broken crate hangs overhead. Welcome to the lower city. No rent, no politics, no snow above the knee. Children have turned the tunnels into kingdoms. A 10-year-old king in a potato sack crown guards the intersection of 19th and Frost, exacting tolls in marbles and crusts of bread. His prime minister, a girl with icicles in her braids, keeps the royal ledger on a slate. Tax paid, 3 jokes, 1 harmonica solo, 1 warm sock, left foot. You pass a bakery that exists entirely below street level. Mrs. Moretti has sawed a perfect rectangle through her shop ceiling and lowered a rope ladder. The smell that rises is illegal in 3 states: yeast, anise, and hope. She sells loaves through what used to be her skylight, now a street-facing window. Each customer crawls in on hands and knees, emerges crowned with flour, clutching warm bread like contraband sunshine. Further down, a policeman has established the subterranean precinct. His desk is a barrel, his gavel a frozen haddock. He keeps order by reciting limericks. Violators are sentenced to sing, "There once was a man from Nantucket," until the walls stop laughing. At the corner of Frost and Broadway Alley, 20 men have carved a cathedral. They sawed through 8 feet of snow with nothing but handsaws and a ladle stolen from a boarding house kitchen. The vaulted ceiling glitters with frost feathers. Someone has hung a lantern from an umbrella rib. It swings gently, painting golden halos on every face. Inside, a violinist with frostbitten fingertips plays simple gifts so slowly that each note arrives like a heartbeat. 50 people sit on overturned buckets, eyes closed, breathing in unison. When the last note dies, no one moves. The silence is so complete you can hear the snow settle. A boy crawls past you dragging a red wagon filled with messages sealed in ginger ale bottles. He charges 1 penny per delivery, or 1 good story. His bestseller is a note that simply reads, "To whoever finds this, I am alive and I love you." He has delivered 312 copies so far.
You reach the junction where the Uptown Boys supposedly tunneled straight into Finnegan's pub. The rumor is true. A perfect archway, carved with pocket knives and prayer, opens into the saloon's cellar. The bartender stands on a crate pouring whiskey into teacups because every glass is frozen solid. He greets each new arrival with the same toast. To the moles of Manhattan, may we never see daylight again. Above their head, the elevated railroad has become the city's nervous system. Engineers walk the tracks with red flags, shouting coordinates down to digging crews below. Roof collapse at 312 West 22nd, 3 souls inside. Minutes later, you hear the rhythmic thump of shovels racing toward the sound of a muffled voice. By noon, the tunnels stretch for miles. They have names now. The Catacombs, Lower East Side. The Ice Veins, Chelsea. Lover's Lane, a narrow passage where sweethearts meet because it's the only place parents can't follow. Someone has chalked a map on a wall near 14th Street. It looks like the subway system 50 years early, drawn by a drunk angel.
At 2:43 p.m., a cheer ripples through every corridor. The first horse-drawn snowplow, 6 Percherons in leather boots, clatters down a cleared stretch of Broadway. Children run alongside throwing snowballs that explode against the beast's flanks like white fireworks. The driver rings a cowbell and shouts, "Make way for civilization!" By dusk, the lanterns come out. Hundreds of them. Tallow, whale oil, kerosene, one brave soul using a candle stuck in a turnip. The tunnels glow like the inside of a nautilus shell. Shadows dance on ice walls tall enough to touch the sky you can no longer see. You find yourself in a circle of strangers who feel like family. Someone passes a flask of something that tastes like fire and forgiveness. Someone else starts singing Danny Boy, and every voice in the tunnel joins, rising and falling like a single lung. When the last note fades, a woman you've never met kisses your cheek and whispers, "We breathe together." Later, you will learn that on this single day, 217 people were dug out alive. You will learn that the tunnels saved more lives than all the hospitals in Manhattan. You will learn that Mrs. Moretti's bakery sold 4,312 loaves in 72 hours and never wrote a single bill. But tonight, you only know that your hands are raw, your heart is full, and the city has moved underground to remember what it means to be warm. You crawl back through Frost Street, past the sleeping king in the potato sack crown, past the violinist now sawing out Over the Waves for an audience of 3 cats and 1 drunken policeman. You climb your ice staircase, close the door on the sapphire world, and fall asleep to the sound of 1,000 shovels still singing beneath the city. Tomorrow, the sun will melt the roofs.
Tomorrow the tunnels will weep themselves into rivers. Tomorrow Manhattan will stand up, stretch, and pretend it never learned to live on its knees. But tonight, 6 feet below the streets that no longer exist, New York is the warmest city on earth. Sunday, March 18th, 1888. The day the ocean remembered it was stronger than ice. A low, mournful boom rolls across the city just before dawn. You sit bolt upright in bed, heart hammering, certain the world is splitting open. Then you realize it is only the tide returning to argue with the ice. You dress in every scrap of wool you own and follow the sound downhill toward the harbor, climbing snow ridges that steam in the early sun like sleeping dragons. The East River has become a battlefield between water and winter. Great plates of ice, the size of city blocks, groan and buckle, shoved upward by the Atlantic's slow, relentless fist. Each collision sends a shudder through the ground you feel in your teeth. Crack! Boom! A long, dying sigh as another sheet surrenders and flips skyward, revealing black water underneath. like a wound. Along the waterfront, the city looks like a shipwreck in reverse. Ferries lie on their sides, half swallowed. A three-masted schooner sits upright in the middle of South Street, its bowsprit tangled in a warehouse roof.
Sailors move across the frozen decks like ants on a wedding cake, chipping away ice with axes and crowbars. Every blow rings out, ting, 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 bright and desperate against the deeper heartbeat of the tide. You reach the edge of the ice and stand beside a customs officer who hasn't slept in 5 days. His beard is a sculpture of salt and frost. He points to a patch of open water no wider than a city block. "That's new since yesterday," he says, voice raw. "By tomorrow, the whole damn river might be angry again." Out beyond the battery, the schooner, Marianne, drifts like a ghost. Her sails are shredded lace, her rigging glazed thick as glass. A week ago, she was bound for Lisbon with a cargo of cotton and dreams. Now she is a tombstone for 7 men whose names the sea has already forgotten. Her logbook, pried open by a brave harborman, ends mid-sentence. Winds rising fast, snow thicker than A sudden crack splits the air. A slab of ice the size of a brownstone church rears up 20 feet, then crashes down, sending a geyser of black water skyward. Men cheer as if the ocean itself has scored a point against winter. On Pier 29, a crowd has gathered around something impossible.
A whale, a 60-foot finback driven inland by the storm surge, now lies frozen halfway up Water Street. Its eye, still liquid, still shining, stares straight at the sky it will never swim under again. Children poke it with sticks. A photographer balances on a crate, trying to capture the moment before the creature becomes legend. You walk north along the waterfront, past ships that look like they've been dipped in sugar and left to harden. The Charlotte May, a packet boat out of Liverpool, is locked so tight in ice that her crew has sawed a doorway through the hull and hung a sign. Boarding house, hot rum, 10 cents, no questions asked. A sailor with a face like old rope offers you a tin mug packed with shaved ice and something that burns all the way down. "To the river," he toasts. "May she never freeze again." By noon, the tide has won a narrow channel. Black water snakes between the floes, steaming where it touches the sun. Gulls wheel overhead, screaming like they've just remembered how to fly. A boy on a homemade raft, 2 doors lashed together with bed sheets, poles himself across the open water, shouting, "The sea is back! The sea is back!" People line the piers and cheer him on as if he's Columbus. At 2:17 p.m., the first steam whistle in 6 days splits the sky. The ferry Chancellor, freed by a gang of men with picks and prayers, backs slowly out of her icy cradle.
Her paddle wheels churn slush the color of café au lait. Every church bell in Manhattan answers at once, a ragged, joyful riot of sound that rattles windows from here to Brooklyn. You stand on the pier with 1,000 strangers who feel like family. Someone passes a flask. Someone else starts singing, "Roll, Alabama, roll." By the time the second verse rolls around, the entire waterfront is roaring the chorus, voices carrying clear across the water to New Jersey. Later, historians will argue over wind speeds and death tolls. They will name the storm the Great White Hurricane and file it neatly between the Johnstown Flub and the Galveston Hurricane. They will say it birthed modern forecasting, underground cables, and the first snowplows pulled by horses in leather boots. But on this Sunday in March 1888,
None of that matters. What matters is the smell of salt cutting through 6 days of coal smoke. What matters is the sight of black water moving again, stubborn as hope. What matters is the sound of a city remembering it was born on an island, and islands always return to the sea. You watch the Chancellor round the battery, her whistle screaming like a kettle that is finally boiled. Behind her, the ice begins to break up in earnest, great cracks zigzagging across the harbor like lightning frozen mid-flash. Somewhere out there, the Marianne gives one last shudder and slips beneath the surface, taking her unfinished sentence with her. You turn your face into the wind.
It smells of tar and thaw and tomorrow. The great white hurricane has had its say. Now the Atlantic gets the last word. And the last word is simply this: we are still here. We are still moving. We are still free. Monday, March 19th, 1888, the day the city started telling itself back to life. You wake to the smell of bread and the sound of stories. Someone is knocking, not the frantic rap of rescue, but the gentle, deliberate knock of neighbors who have decided the world is safe enough for visiting. You open the door to find Mr. Lindquist from 3B, cheeks wind-burned, eyes shining like a man who has seen the edge and walked back laughing. He presses a loaf into your hands, still warm, wrapped in a page of yesterday's world that declares in 72-point type, "Blizzard over, city lives." Mrs. Moretti says the ovens are hot and the stories are hotter, he grins. Come before the children eat everything that isn't nailed down. You follow him down the ice staircase that is already weeping itself into slush. The tunnels have become streets again. Walls sagging, ceilings dripping, floors turning to rivers of diamonds. Every doorway is hung with a flag, a dish towel, a child's red mitten, a lady's silk stocking fluttering like surrender in reverse. The bakery on 19th has become Grand Central Station for the human soul. 50 people are packed inside a room meant for 12. Mrs. Moretti stands on a crate, flour in her hair like snow that forgot to leave, ladling coffee thick as tar into tin cups that pass hand to hand like communion. In the corner, a circle has formed around Old Man Kowalski, the retired cooper from Broome Street. He is telling the one about the cat frozen mid-leap above a fence on Rivington. The cat hung there for 3 days, tail straight as a ruler, whiskers stiff as wire. On the 4th day, the sun came out, and the cat dropped, alive, into a snowbank, shook itself, and strolled away like nothing happened. The room explodes. A nurse counters with the baby born in the pizza oven on Mulberry Street. Mother swearing in Italian, baker swearing in Neapolitan, baby arriving pink and yelling loud enough to thaw the pipes. A boy no older than 10 claims he saw an entire horse-drawn omnibus lifted clean off Bleecker Street and set down gently on a rooftop, driver still holding the reins, passengers still reading their newspapers upside down. The prize goes to Mrs. Delaney, the midwife from Hell's Kitchen, who swears on her mother's grave that she delivered twins in a horse car stranded on the 3rd Avenue L, one boy, one girl, and named them Blizzard and Thaw.
The room roars so loud the icicles outside shiver loose and crash like chandeliers. You find yourself telling your own story about the night you knocked on the wall and Mrs. O'Donnell answered with 2 knocks and a harmonica solo of Danny Boy that lasted until the coal ran out. When you finish, a stranger presses a fresh roll into your hand and says, "That one's going in the book." Across town, in every church basement, school auditorium, and firehouse, the same miracle is happening. People who survived alone are now refusing to be alone again. They sit knee to knee on pews and potato sacks, trading tales like currency.
The milkman who tunneled 3 blocks to deliver 1 bottle to a newborn. The priest who held mass on a rooftop for a congregation of 400. The host raised against a sky so blue it hurt. The pickpocket who spent 3 nights returning wallets because even thieves need neighbors in weather like this. At the Stormhouse Tavern on Pearl Street, the owner has nailed a sign above the bar. Free drinks for stories that make the barkeep cry or laugh, preferably both. By noon, the place is standing room only.
A dock worker tells how he and 6 others burned whale oil on the deck of the Jenny Lind to melt a path to open water. The ship caught fire and drifted 3 miles, burning like a Viking funeral, yet every man walked away without a blister. The barkeep pours whiskey with tears running down his cheeks and declares it the winner. Someone has started a ledger titled Memories of the Great White Hurricane, Volume 1. It is already 47 pages long, written in pencil, charcoal, and cranberry juice when ink ran out. Entries include March 14, heard my own heartbeat louder than the wind. March 16, gave my last potato to a child who called me sir like I was a king. March 18, saw the East River break its chains and remembered I was born on an island. Children run through the streets delivering copies for a penny or a smile. One page circulates with a single line in a child's careful cursive. The snow was very tall, but people were taller. By dusk, the city is drunk on stories instead of gin. On every corner, strangers swap tales like baseball cards. A woman on 23rd Street has pinned a map to a lamppost where people mark where they were when the lights went out. The map is already a constellation of ink blots and hearts. You end the day in the basement of St. Agnes Church, where Father Malone has opened the doors to anyone with a story and an empty stomach. 200 people sit on pews dragged into a circle.
A fiddler saws out reels while a grandmother from Sicily teaches a policeman from Donegal how to dance the tarantella on a floor still covered in straw. Someone starts the parting glass. By the second verse, every voice in the room has joined, rising through the stained glass windows that glow blue with the last of the snowlight. When the song ends, no one moves. The silence is soft, full, the kind that only comes when people have decided they will never be colder than they were together. You walk home under a moon so bright it casts shadows sharp as knives. The tunnels are collapsing now, roofs sagging, walls weeping, floors turning to rivers that run downhill toward the harbor. By morning they will be gone, washed away like a dream that lasted a week. But the stories will not melt. They will be told in tenements and taverns, in boardrooms and classrooms, in letters that travel faster than any train the blizzard ever stopped. Years from now, a child will ask her grandmother what the Great White Hurricane was like. The old woman will smile, eyes crinkling like frost patterns, and say, "It was the week the city forgot how to be strangers." And that will be the truest thing anyone ever wrote about 1888.
Tuesday, March 20th, 1888, the day the city remembered it had colors. You wake to a sound you had forgotten existed, footsteps that are not your own. Real, unhurried, ordinary footsteps crunching past your window at 7:30 in the morning. You fling the curtain aside and the world explodes into color. The snow is no longer white. It is rose where the sun touches it, indigo in the shadows, gold where chimney smoke drifts across it like silk scarves. A woman in a scarlet cloak walks down the middle of 19th Street as if she owns the entire avenue. A boy in a green cap drags a red sled piled with firewood. Even the mud beneath the melting drifts has decided to be beautiful, rich, coffee-colored rivers that catch the sky and throw it back in pieces. You dress faster than you have in weeks and step outside.
The air smells like every season at once. Wood smoke winter, wet earth spring, salt sea summer, and something sharp and metallic that belongs only to this moment.
The street is a carnival of return. A milk wagon, actual wheels, actual horse, clatters past with a bell that sounds like church on Easter morning. The horse is sway-backed and ancient, but its eyes roll white with triumph. The driver stands in the seat, waving his hat like a cavalry charge. Children run alongside shouting, "Milk's back! Milk's back!" as though the man is carrying the Holy Grail in glass bottles. On the corner, Mrs. Moretti has set up an outdoor oven made from a wash tub and bricks. She is selling hot cross buns for a penny or a story, whichever you have more of. A line stretches 20 deep. A policeman pays with the tail of the frozen cat again. Mrs. Moretti pretends to believe him for the 100th time and hands over 2 buns. Everywhere, animals are reclaiming their citizenship. A black and white dog, nobody's and therefore everybody's, trots down the avenue with a ham bone longer than his body, tail held high like a battle standard. Pigeons explode off rooftops in silver clouds, wheeling so close you can hear their wings clap. A rooster, drunk on daylight, crows from the top of a hansom cab that still hasn't been dug out. Someone has tied a blue ribbon around its neck. It looks like the mare of chickens. At the stable on 18th Street, Old Man Riley is leading out horses one by one. Each animal steps into the sunlight as though it has never seen it before, ears pricked, nostrils flaring, coats steaming.
He brushes them down right in the middle of the street while a crowd watches in reverent silence. When the last mare, a chestnut with a white blaze, nuzzles his shoulder, the crowd breaks into applause loud enough to rattle icicles off the eaves. You find yourself at the Stormhouse Tavern, which has spilled out onto the sidewalk. The owner has dragged every table into the slush and is serving coffee laced with yesterday's whiskey. A sign reads, "Today's special, hot drinks, warm stories, cold feet welcome." A fiddler you last saw playing for soup now saws out Gary Owen, while a dozen men dance a clumsy jig in boots still caked with snow. Their shadows stretch 20 feet long across the melting drifts, tall as giants. Someone has painted a mural on the side of a half-collapsed stable, a giant white wave curling over the city, and beneath it, hundreds of tiny figures holding hands. Underneath, in letters still wet, "We were the wave too." By noon, the streets are rivers. Children float paper boats made from blizzard bulletins. A boy launches one labeled USS Thaw and cheers when it sails straight into a puddle the size of a small lake. Old women sit on stoops knitting, their needles flashing like swords catching sunlight. Every face you pass is sunburned from reflected light and smiling like they've been paid a year's wages in daylight. At 2 p.m., the first streetcar in 9 days clangs down 8th Avenue. The motorman rings the bell non-stop, as if he can't believe it still works. People line the tracks cheering so hard their voices crack. Someone throws roses, actual roses, rescued from a florist's greenhouse and half frozen but still red as sin. They land on the roof and stick there, a crimson crown for the city's return. The snow walls have shrunk to knee-high ramparts, revealing cobblestones that gleam like wet piano keys. Every doorway is a stage. Mrs. O'Donnell stands in hers, wearing a curtain for a cloak, a colander for a hat, and the kind of smile that could melt steel. She is selling genuine blizzard bonnet pins, tin snowflakes on safety pins for a penny each. A line of women snakes down the block,
clutching their coins like rosary beads. Across the avenue, Mr. Goldstein, the tailor, has set up shop on the sidewalk. His sewing machine sits on an upturned barrel, foot pedal pumping like a heartbeat. He is turning army blankets into coats, tablecloths into scarves, and one very confused lace curtain into the warmest shawl Chelsea has ever seen. Each finished piece comes with a free story. This one kept a family of 6 alive on Broome Street, 2 knocks for yes, 3 for more coal. A boy runs past shouting the day's exchange rates. 1 funny story equals 1 hot potato. 1 true confession equals 1 cup of coffee. 1 song in tune equals 2 rolls with butter. The Stormhouse Tavern has gone fashion forward. The owner has hung a sign. Today only, free drink if you're still wearing the same underwear from March 12. No proof required, we believe you. Inside, a woman is modeling the latest look. 3 petticoats, 1 horse blanket, and a smile that says, "Try me." She calls it Blizzard Chic. Harper's Bazaar will copy it next winter and pretend they invented it.
By 9 o'clock, the streets are a patchwork runway. A banker strides past in a fur coat made from his wife's parlor rug. A newsboy sports gaiters fashioned from Police Gazette pages, headlines still visible, great white "her" across his shins. Children wear barrels like hoop skirts, racing each other while their mothers laugh so hard they have to lean on lampposts. At the corner of 6th and 20th, Old Man Kowalski has opened a Blizzard Museum. Admission, 1 laugh. Exhibits include the legendary frozen cat, actually a very cooperative tabby wearing a wire frame. A teacup still glued to a saucer by fairy ice. 1 genuine tear from a Wall Street broker preserved in a thimble. The line stretches to the river. Commerce is inventing itself faster than the city can thaw. A pushcart sells storm-aged milk, bottles buried in snowdrifts for a week, and now guaranteed fresh or your nickel back. Another offers blizzard quilts, each square cut from a different survivor's coat, stitched together with stories instead of thread. A bookseller whose entire shop was entombed in ice now sells volumes by the pound. Take home a little of the storm that tried to take us. You buy a quilt square from a girl with fingers still raw from sewing by candlelight. It is patched from a policeman's coat, a baker's apron, and what might be Mrs. Moretti's best tablecloth. She charges you 1 true thing. You tell her about the night you heard Mrs. O'Donnell play Danny Boy through the wall until the harmonica froze mid-note. The girl writes your name on the square in laundry pencil. Knock twice if you're still here. By noon, the first streetcar in 10 days clangs down 8th Avenue wearing a wreath of evergreens someone tied to the front like a victory laurel.
The motorman rings the bell non-stop, as if music alone can keep the ice from coming back. People cheer from rooftops, from doorways, from the middle of the street where they have no business standing. At 2 p.m., the mayor, looking like a man who has slept in his office for a week, declares Blizzard Dress Day official. Anyone wearing something improvised from the storm gets free coffee at any saloon in the city. By 2:07, the streets are a riot of horse blankets, burlap sacks, and one very dignified gentleman in a stovepipe hat made entirely of newspaper. You end the day in Mrs. Moretti's bakery, which has become the unofficial headquarters of the new fashion. The walls are papered with sketches, coats with 20 pockets, boots lined with yesterday's sun, a wedding dress made from parachute silk and hope. Mrs. Moretti pins a tin snowflake to your collar and declares you certified survivor, first class. Outside, the sun sets pink and gold on a city that has decided to wear its scars like medals. Every patched coat, every mismatched mitten, every curtain shawl fluttering in the thaw wind,
is a love letter to the storm that tried to kill them. You walk home under street lamps that flicker on for the first time in forever. Your reflection in a shop window looks like someone who has been remade. Boots wrapped in burlap, coat stitched from 2 different blankets, scarf that used to be a tape runner, and a tin snowflake pinned over your heart. You look ridiculous. You look magnificent. You look like New York. The great white hurricane is gone, but the city it dressed in survival will never take those clothes off again. Thursday, March 22nd, 1888, the day the city started writing its own resurrection. You wake to the sound of ink being born.
Not the polite scratch of a clerk's pen, but the hungry, wet growl of a printing press that has been starved for 10 days and is now devouring paper like a wolf. The smell drifts up through your floorboards, hot metal, fresh ink, wet wool, and something electric that has no name yet. You open your door and the hallway is already a library. Someone has papered the walls with the morning's first broadsheet, still damp, still screaming in 72-point type. The white hurricane is dead. Long live New York. Underneath, in smaller type, printed on a press that was dug out of a snowdrift at 3:17 a.m. by 6 men, 2 boys, and 1 very determined cat. You step outside and the city is writing itself back into existence. On every corner, children have become publishers. They hawk blizzard bulletins, scribbled on butcher paper. Lost, 1 grandmother last seen wearing a teapot on her head. Reward, hot soup. Found, the moon. It was hiding behind the Equitable Building. For sale, genuine storm silence, bottled fresh, 1 nickel. At the Stormhouse Tavern, the owner has replaced the bar with a communal table the size of a wagon. It is covered edge to edge with paper. People write standing up, sitting down, lying across it like cats. Ink bottles pass hand to hand like communion cups. The sign above reads, "Leave your story or take one with you. No one leaves empty-handed." Mrs. Moretti has turned her bakery into a scriptorium. Every customer who buys a loaf must first dictate 1 sentence to the boy with the charcoal stub. March 14. I knocked on the wall and the wall knocked back. The sentences are pinned to a clothesline that stretches from oven to door, fluttering like prayer flags made of flour and hope. On 23rd Street, M. Pierre Dubois, photographer, madman, genius, has set up his camera on a roof. He is taking portraits for free. Each person stands against a backdrop of half-melted snow and holds whatever saved them: a harmonica, a frozen cat, a child's mitten, a single tin cup. The glass plates crack in the cold, but the images survive. Ghostly, radiant, eternal. You find yourself in the basement of the Mercantile Library, which has become the unofficial archive of the apocalypse. Volunteers sort thousands of scraps. Love letters written on grocery lists written on love letters. A child's drawing of a house with smoke shaped like a heart. A single page that reads, "I burned my diary to stay warm. If you are reading this, I made it." Someone has started a ledger titled, "We Were Here." It is already thicker than the Bible. Entries are written in every language spoken in Manhattan, and a few that haven't been invented yet. March 15. Heard my neighbor sing Danny Boy through a stovepipe. I answered with 2 knocks and 1 tear. March 17. Gave my last potato
to a boy who called me sir like I was a king. March 19. Watched the East River break its chains and remembered I was born on an island. By noon, the streets are ankle-deep in stories. Children slide down snowbanks on sleds made of frozen headlines.
A boy sells genuine blizzard ink, soot mixed with melted snow, for a penny a bottle. It freezes in the vial and has to be thawed over a candle before you can write, which feels exactly right. At 2 p.m., the first mail coach in 12 days rumbles down Broadway. The driver stands in the box ringing a bell and shouting, "Letters! Letters for the living and the dead, both delivered free today!" People run alongside, sobbing, laughing, waving envelopes that smell of candle smoke and desperation. You add your own page to the clothesline at Mrs. Moretti's. March 12, I thought the world had ended. March 22, I am writing this on paper that was once a grocery list for turnips. The turnips never arrived. The world did. Evening finds you on the roof again, the same roof where you once waved a bedsheet like a drowning sailor. Now it is dry enough for a party. Someone has dragged up a piano that survived by being too heavy to freeze. Someone else has brought a fiddle made from a cigar box and hope. They play After the Ball, and every voice in Chelsea joins in, rising over the rooftops, drifting across the harbor, reaching Brooklyn before the echo does. Below you, the city is a constellation of tiny fires, each stove, each candle, each heart, burning just bright enough to prove the darkness lost. You open the notebook you bought for a nickel and a smile. The first page is already smudged with soot and thaw water. You write, "We were buried for 9 days. We dug ourselves out with shovels, with songs, with stories sharp enough to cut ice. We learned that silence is only scary when you think you're alone in it. We learned that warmth is not temperature. It is the distance between two ants that decide not to let go." You underline the last line twice, the way the boarding house lady underlined the earth, reminding everyone who was in charge. Then you close the book, tuck it inside your coat next to your heart, and join the singing. Because the great white hurricane is finally, truly, completely over. And the story of how we survived it has only just begun. Friday, March 23rd, 1888. The day the city remembered what day it was. You wake to the sound of time starting again. Not the polite tick of your mantel clock, which gave up the ghost sometime around Tuesday week ago, but the wild, sloppy, glorious music of a city that has decided to be late for everything and doesn't care. Drip, crash, splash, creak, shout, laugh, drip again. You throw open the window and the air hits you like champagne left in the sun, sharp, sweet, and a little drunk. The temperature has jumped 20 degrees overnight. The snow is committing suicide in broad daylight, leaping off roofs in wet avalanches that sound like applause. Below your window, Mrs. O'Donnell is dancing, actually dancing in the middle of 19th Street. She has traded her curtain cloak for a dress the color of robin's eggs, and is twirling so hard her boots send up fans of slush. Every time a slab of snow thunders down from a cornice, she throws back her head and laughs like a girl who has just been told the world is hers. You dress in the first clothes that aren't patched, mismatched, or made from upholstery and run downstairs. The streets are a riot of thaw. Broadway has become Venice, if Venice were built by drunk giants. Rivers race along the gutters, carrying entire civilizations, a child's wooden horse, a lady's parasol, 3 issues of the Police Gazette, and one very confused trout someone swears came from the East River. Every manhole exhales steam like a dragon waking from a nightmare. At the corner of 14th and 6th, a brass band, 16 pieces, all slightly damp, has set up in a puddle the size of a ballroom. They are playing After the Ball at double speed, as if the song itself is trying to catch up with lost time. People dance in the slush, boots ruined, hearts intact. A policeman directs traffic with a ladle. Union Square has turned into a sculpture garden of collapsing snow. Children pummel the last surviving drifts with sticks, shrieking triumph as each one caves in like a defeated army. Someone has stuck a top hat on a melting snowman and labeled it Boss Tweed, finally brought low. You find yourself in City Hall Park, where a crowd has gathered around the statue of George Washington. The father of his country has been buried to the knees for 12 days. Now, 20 men with chisels and brooms are liberating him inch by inch. Every time another bronze button appears, the crowd cheers like it's the 4th of July. A boy no older than 10 stands on a crate, ringing a dinner bell and shouting the day's news. It is Friday. The date is March 23. We are still in the year 1888.
God save the Republic and pass the coffee. Someone hands you a mug. It is hot, black, and tastes like resurrection. At exactly 11:07 a.m., every church bell in Manhattan decides to ring at once. They are rusty, off-key, and half-frozen, but they manage a ragged, glorious hallelujah that rattles windows from here to Hoboken. Pigeons explode off rooftops in silver clouds. A woman in a scarlet shawl drops to her knees right in the middle of Broadway and sobs into her apron, not from grief, but from the sheer indecent joy of knowing what day it is. By noon, the streets are ankle-deep in history. The snow that once reached second-story windows is now a filthy, glorious mud that squelches like applause under every boot. People walk slower than they need to, as if afraid the ground might vanish again if they move too fast. You pass a shop window where someone has painted in gold letters still dripping, "We are open and we know what day it is." Inside, the owner is giving away calendars, brand new 1888 calendars that no one has torn a page from in 2 weeks. He presses one into your hands and says, voice cracking, "Mark the days you were alive, every single one." At 2 p.m., the first train in 13 days steams into Grand Central. It is 6 hours late, covered in icicles like a wedding cake left in the rain, and greeted by a crowd of 5,000 who sing Sweet Betsy from Pike until they lose their voices. The conductor steps down, takes off his hat, and bows so low his beard sweeps the platform. You end the day on the Brooklyn Bridge, because you can, because it's still standing, because the ferries are finally moving again, and the city has decided to throw itself a parade. The promenade is packed with people who have walked across just to prove they still can. Below, the East River runs black and free, steam rising where the sun touches it.
Above, the cables hum in the wind like harp strings played by a God who has forgiven us. Someone starts singing Auld Lang Syne. By the second verse, the entire bridge is singing. 10,000 voices, raw from crying and laughing and shouting the date at strangers, rise together over the water and drift south toward the sea that tried to swallow us and failed. You stand at the railing, boots soaked, heart wide open, and watch the last sliver of sun paint the city the color of forgiveness. The great white hurricane is over.
The thaw has come, and New York, muddy, loud, impossible, alive, has remembered exactly what day it is. Today. And every day after this one is a gift we will never again take for granted. You wake to the sound of 1,000 heartbeats made of iron. Clang, scrape, grunt, laugh, clang again. The entire block is shoveling in 4/4 time, as if Manhattan has hired an orchestra of sweat and hope to play its anthem of return. You grab the spade that has become your second spine and join the chain that snakes down 19th Street. 50 people linked by rhythm and steam. A baker still wearing his apron stiff with frozen flour. A debutante in diamond earrings and rubber boots. A newsboy whose voice cracked somewhere between Tuesday and forever.
Old man Kowalski conducting the whole affair with a pickle barrel lid for a symbol. Every shovelful thrown skyward bursts into diamonds and lands with a wet slap that sounds exactly like applause. The snow is no longer the enemy. It is the patient. We are surgeons carving arteries through its chest. Each new channel cut lets another pulse of city life rush back in. A pushcart selling coffee thick as tar. A milk wagon whose horse keeps trying to kiss the driver. A little girl dragging a red sled now filled with lilacs someone found blooming under a south-facing window. At the corner of 7th Avenue, Mrs. Moretti has built a snow wall 6 feet high and perfectly smooth. She is painting it with coffee grounds and beet juice. A mural of the storm as a sleeping giant, one arm flung over the city like a blanket. Underneath, in letters tall enough to read from Brooklyn, she writes, "We were warm underneath. Thank you for digging us out." Passers-by add their own lines with sticks and fingers. "Knock twice if you're still here." "My cat sends regards." Turns out neighbors are a renewable resource. By 10 a.m., the first streetcar in 2 weeks clangs its way down 8th Avenue on tracks still half buried. The motorman has tied a dinner bell to the front and rings it like he's announcing the second coming. People line the route 10 deep, cheering so hard their voices crack like the ice beneath the wheels. At 11:11, someone's watch finally agreed with someone else's. The entire digging army on 23rd Street breaks through to 6th Avenue.
A tunnel 30 feet long suddenly opens into sunlight, and the cheer that goes up rattles windows from here to Harlem. Strangers hug strangers. A policeman cries into his helmet. Mrs. O'Donnell plays Gary Owen on her harmonica until the mouthpiece thaws and she has to warm it in her armpit between verses. You find yourself in a human chain passing buckets of snow, hand to hand toward the river. The last man in line is a fireman with arms like bridge cables. Every time a bucket reaches him, he hurls it into the Hudson with a roar that scares gulls into the next county. The river is black and greedy, swallowing every offering as if it too wants to forget. At noon, the mayor, still wearing bedroom slippers under his overcoat, declares Shovel Day official. Anyone who digs for 4 hours gets a free dinner at any saloon in the city. By 12:03, every saloon is out of food, and the digging has doubled. Someone starts singing, "Drill, ye tarriers, drill." By the second verse, the whole west side is singing. By the third verse, even the snow seems to sway in time. At 3 p.m., a miracle happens on 14th Street. An entire block is declared officially open. No snow higher than a man's ankle from Broadway to the river. People walk down the middle of it just because they can, arms outstretched like tightrope walkers, laughing at the sheer indecent joy of solid ground. You end the day on your roof, the same roof that was once an island.
Now it is connected to every other roof by bridges of packed snow and pure stubbornness. Someone has strung lanterns between the chimneys. They sway in the thaw wind like paper moons. Below, the city is a lacework of light and water. Every cleared street glows amber under the gas lamps.
Every remaining snowbank glitters like it's sorry for what it did. You lean your shovel against the chimney, the same shovel that has carried coal, dug tunnels, and now carved arteries, and listen. The sound is no longer the wind's scream. It is the slow, steady, magnificent heartbeat of a city that learned how to bleed snow and decided to bleed life instead. Clang, scrape, grunt, laugh, clang again. Tomorrow there will be more digging. The day after that, even more. But tonight, for the first time since March 11th, you know exactly what time it is. It is time to be alive. And every shovel in Manhattan is keeping perfect time. Sunday, March 25th, 1888. The day the city learned how to mourn while still digging. You wake to silence so complete you think the world has ended again. Then you realize it is Sunday. The shovels have stopped. Even the thaw has paused to listen. You step outside and the city is holding its breath. Broadway is open from 14th to 59th, a black ribbon of mud and memory. The snow walls have shrunk to knee-high ghosts, their edges soft as candle wax. Every lamppost glows with a flame someone lit last night and refused to let die.
At the corner of 23rd and 6th, the piano still stands. Someone has draped it in black bunting stolen from a theater. On top sits a single white lilac and a mason jar filled with nickels, dimes, and one gold locket no one has claimed. A note in a child's handwriting is pinned to the keys. Play softly. The dead are sleeping under the snow. People come alone or in pairs. They do not speak above a whisper. A woman in widow's weeds lifts the lid and plays 3 chords of Nearer My God to Thee. The sound floats down the avenue like snow that has forgotten how to fall. A man in a fireman's helmet takes off his hat and holds it over his heart until the last note dies. You walk south, past shops that have put black ribbons in their windows, beside hand-lettered signs. We are open, we are sorry, we are still here. At Union Square, the statue of George Washington now stands completely free. Someone has placed a wreath of pine and newspaper roses around his neck. At his feet lie 400 small white stones, one for every name the papers have printed, and 100 more for the ones they never will. A priest in a threadbare cassock reads the names aloud. His voice cracks on every third one. When he reaches Mary Elizabeth O'Rourke, aged 7, a woman near the front folds like a broken marionette. 2 strangers catch her before she hits the ground. No one tells them to. They just do.
You keep walking until you reach the East River. The water is the color of steel and forgiveness. A boy is skipping stones across the surface. Each one lands with a sound like a period at the end of a very long sentence. On the pier, a hand-painted sign reads, "For those the snow kept, light a candle tonight and leave your window open." By dusk, every window in Manhattan glows, not gaslight, candlelight. 10,000 small flames trembling against the dark like the city itself is learning how to pray. You light your own candle and set it on the sill. The flame paints your room gold. Outside, the thaw has started again, softer now, almost courteous. Each drop that falls from the eaves sounds like a name being forgiven. You open the notebook you have carried since the first night. The pages are warped with meltwater and hope. You write, "We dug for 12 days straight. We found streets, pianos, horses, and each other. We also found the shape of what was missing. Tonight, the city is quiet enough to hear it. 400 empty chairs at 400 tables. 400 songs that will never be finished. 400 mothers who will set one less plate forever." You underline the last line, then add,
But tomorrow, we will set 500 plates, because that is what survivors do. We make room for the missing by feeding the living. You close the book, blow out the candle, and leave the window open. Somewhere across the rooftops, a harmonica begins to play Shenandoah. Another joins in, then another. By the time the moon rises, every street in the city is singing the same slow, heartbroken, hopeful lullaby. The great white hurricane is over. The thaw is complete. And New York, scarred, singing, still digging, has learned how to carry its dead in its arms while marching toward morning. Monday, March 26, 1888, the day the city learned to carry its dead in its pockets. You wake before the sun to the sound of one candle still burning. It is the last of the 7 Mrs. O'Donnell placed in her window, one for each night the storm raged. She is standing on her stoop in her nightgown and boots, snuffing them out one by one. When the final flame dies, she whispers something you cannot hear, then crosses herself and goes inside. The street smells of melted wax and wet iron. You dress in black without meaning to. Every coat you own has turned the color of mourning somewhere between soot and thaw. Outside, the city has learned a new language, the language of half-mast flags, of black ribbons tied around lampposts like mourning bracelets, of doors left ajar so the dead can find their way home if they need to.
Broadway is open, but no one hurries. People walk in the middle of the street because the sidewalks still belong to the snow. Every puddle reflects a sky that looks too blue to be decent. At the corner of 23rd and 6th, the piano is gone. In its place stands a small wooden cross wrapped in a child's red scarf. Someone has carved 407 names into the planks, one for every soul the papers finally admitted to. A mason jar at the base is filled with nickels and tears frozen halfway down the glass. You keep walking south until you reach the little church on Greenwich Street. The doors are open. Inside, every pew is full, and every windowsill holds a candle still burning from last night. Father Malone stands at the altar reading names the way other men read stock prices, slowly, carefully, as if a single misspoken syllable might erase someone forever. Patrick Joseph Kelly, aged 34, milkman, last seen on West 17th. A woman in the 3rd row makes a sound like a door closing inside her chest. When the list ends, no one moves. The silence is so complete you can hear the candles drinking their own wax. Then a boy, no older than 10, walks to the front carrying a school slate. On it, in chalk, now smudged and ghostly, are tally marks. 407 lines. He turns the slate to the congregation so everyone can see, then gently erases one mark for every soul named. When he is done, the slate is blank. He lays it on the altar like an offering and walks back to his mother.
Outside, the gravedigger is waiting. Mr. Daniel Shea, who no longer digs holes, but makes doors for the earth. He tips his cap to you and says, voice rough as burlap,
Morning, friend. We're planting good people today. You're welcome to walk with us. The funeral procession is small and enormous at once. 7 coffins on a single sledge, pulled by 2 black horses wearing blankets stitched from American flags. No band, no flowers, they would freeze before they reached the cemetery. Only the sound of boots on slush and 700 people breathing in perfect unison. At Greenwood Cemetery, the ground is still iron. The grave diggers have built fires in barrels to soften the earth. Each coffin is lowered with ropes made from clotheslines and prayers. When the first one touches bottom, Mr. Shea speaks the line that will outlive him. I make doors for the earth to welcome her children home. Someone starts, Nearer my God to thee. By the second verse, every voice in the cemetery has joined, rising over the half-melted drifts like smoke that refuses to forget where it came from. You walk home at twilight. The city has learned to mourn in motion. A woman ties a black ribbon around a lamppost and keeps sweeping. A newsboy sells papers with the death list on page 1 and whistles Sweet Betsy from Pike between shouts. A baker slides a tray of warm rolls into the oven and names them Remembrance Buns, half price for anyone who knew a name on the list. Every window you pass holds at least 1 candle. Some hold 7. Some hold 1 that will never be blown out. You reach your building and find Mrs. O'Donnell on the stoop again. She is holding a small bundle wrapped in newspaper. Inside are 7 stubs of candle wax, still warm.
For your window, she says. 1 for every night we thought the world was ending. Light them when you're ready, or don't. The dead don't mind either way. They just like knowing we remember which nights they missed. You take the bundle upstairs and set it on the sill beside your own candle, still unlit since Friday. Then you open your notebook for the last time. You write, We dug for 12 days and found our streets. We mourned for 7 nights and found our dead. We will light candles for 407 winters and find each other again every time the wind howls too loud. You close the book, strike a match, and light all 8 candles, 7 for the storm and 1 for tomorrow. The flames dance like small defiant hearts refusing to be buried. Outside, the city is quiet enough to hear snow forgive itself for falling. The great white hurricane is over. The thaw is complete. And New York, scarred, gentler, candlelit, has learned to carry its dead the way it once carried shovels, not as weight, but as warmth. Tuesday, March 27th, 1888, the day the city decided never to be buried again. You wake to the sound of hammers singing, not the frantic banging of rescue, but the steady, deliberate heartbeat of a city that has stopped digging graves and started digging foundations.
You open your door, and the hallway smells of sawdust and coffee and tomorrow. Down on 19th Street, Mr. Goldstein, the tailor, has traded his sidewalk sewing machine for a chalkboard the size of a door. He's drawing a picture of Manhattan upside down, skyscrapers growing downward into the earth, roots of steel and wire, while above ground the streets stay clean and calm. Underneath, he writes in letters tall enough to read from the elevated, "We will build over the snow, under the snow, through the snow, but never again in it." A crowd has gathered. Someone passes a flask,
Someone else starts singing John Brown's Body and the whole block joins in, substituting the lyrics, "The wires are marching underground, glory, glory, hallelujah." At City Hall, the mayor, finally wearing proper shoes, stands on the steps beside a model of the new underground telegraph system. It looks like a child's toy, wooden poles painted white lying on their sides, copper veins running beneath the streets like secret rivers. He holds up a single cable still wrapped in ice from the storm and says, voice cracking, "This will never hang in the wind again." The crowd cheers so loud, the pigeons forget how to fly. On Broadway, the Stormhouse Tavern has become headquarters for the committee to never let this happen again. The sign now reads, "Free beer for ideas."
Free ideas for beer. Inside, a bricklayer sketches reinforced chimneys on a napkin. A glassblower designs windows thick enough to stop a cannonball. An Irishman with a brogue you could spread on toast proposes doors that open both ways, so the snow can't decide for us. Every idea is pinned to the wall with a dagger made of frozen telegraph wire. Mrs. Moretti arrives with a tray of rolls shaped like tiny subway cars. She pins a note to each one. Eat this and remember the city that bakes together, never freezes alone. By noon, the first underground cable is being laid on Pearl Street. A trench 6 feet deep runs straight through what used to be a mountain of snow. Children drop notes into the hole before the dirt goes back. To the future, we were cold so you wouldn't have to be. At 3 p.m., the elevated trains start running again. The first one is draped in banners. The blizzard is dead. Long live the subway. People ride just for the sake of motion, waving out windows at strangers who wave back like they've known each other since birth. You end the day on the roof, where this whole story began. The city spreads below you in patches of mud and possibility. Every street that was once a grave is now a promise. Every lamppost that once guided rescuers now points toward tomorrow. Someone has chalked across your chimney, in letters still wet, "We dug our way out. Now, we dig our way forward." You take the last candle stub Mrs. O'Donnell gave you, light it, and set it on the ledge. Then you open your notebook one final time. You write, March 11, the sky fell. March 27, we caught it and turned it into roots. We will build taller. We will dig deeper. We will wire the city beneath its skin and raise it above its fears. We will never again be prisoners of the snow. We will be its architects. You close the book, tuck it inside your coat, and blow out the candle. The smoke rises straight and true, the way telegraph wires will run from now on. Below, the city hums with hammers, with laughter, with the sound of 10,000 people who have decided the future will be warmer because we remember how cold the past could be. The great white hurricane is over. The thaw is complete. And New York, muddy, loud, unbreakable, inventing itself one buried cable at a time, has just begun. 137 years later, when the wind howls too hard and the snow starts to fall sideways, old men in subway cars still tell children, listen, this is nothing. In 1888, the sky itself tried to kill us. We answered by building a city that lives underground when it has to and reaches for the stars when it can.
So button your coat, hold someone's hand, and remember,
Every tunnel you ride through was dug by people who refused to be buried. That's who we are. That's who we'll always be. April 15th, 1888. The day the city finally let the snow go. You wake to birds arguing on your windowsill. They are shouting about territory, about worms, about the sheer nerve of being alive on a morning that smells like green. Outside, the last patch of snow, a stubborn little island under the north side of Mrs. O'Donnell's stoop, has surrendered. It is the size of a dinner plate and shrinking fast, edges curling like paper held too close to a flame. You step into the street barefoot because you can. The cobblestones are warm, real, honest spring warm. Mrs. Moretti is planting crocuses in a half barrel that used to hold blizzard flour. She looks up, cheeks sun pink, and says the words the whole city has been waiting to say. It's over. It's really, truly no going back over. Across the avenue, Mr. Goldstein has taken down his chalkboard. In its place hangs a new sign, painted in careful gold letters. Goldstein and Sons Tailors to Survivors, established 1888, the year we learned to dress for anything.
Children chase each other through puddles that reflect a sky so blue it looks freshly invented. A boy has tied a red ribbon to a stick and runs with it like a banner that reads, "We won!" At the Stormhouse Tavern, the owner has replaced the "Free Beer for Ideas" sign with a simpler one. Thank you for not freezing. Inside, the walls are covered with the original napkins, reinforced chimneys, inward opening doors, subway sketches. They have been framed under glass like holy relics. You walk to the river because you promised yourself you would. The East River runs fast and dark, carrying the last shards of ice out to sea like messages no one needs to read anymore. A ferry blows its whistle, 3 short blasts that mean nothing except, "I'm back." On the Brooklyn Bridge, someone has painted in careful white letters across the roadway, March 11th to 27th, 1888. We were cold, we were kind, we were enough. You stand in the middle of the span and close your eyes. You can still hear it if you listen past the gulls and the horns and the children laughing. The faint, perfect echo of 10,000 shovels keeping time. When you open your eyes, the city spreads before you in every direction. Muddy, noisy, imperfect, alive. And for the first time since the sky fell, you do not look up to see what might come next. You look around at what already has. 137 springs later, a little girl on the subway asks her grandfather why the tunnels are so deep. He smiles, the same smile Mrs. O'Donnell wore when she blew out her 7th candle, and says, because a long time ago, the sky tried to bury us. We answered by digging down far enough to hold hands with tomorrow, and we never stopped holding. The train rushes on, lights flickering like candles that refuse to go out. Above ground, crocuses bloom in every crack of concrete, quiet purple reminders that even the hardest winters keep their promises. The great white hurricane is gone. But every March, when the wind turns sharp and the sky lowers its shoulder, New York remembers. We were cold once. We were kind once. We were enough. And we always will be. May 3, 1888. 6 weeks after the sky tried to end us. You keep one candle stub in a tin box on the mantel. It is the 7th Mrs. O'Donnell gave you,
the one you never lit. Tonight, you take it out for the first time since March. The city is loud with spring, windows thrown open, babies crying, a hurdy-gurdy playing after the ball, off-key but happy. Somewhere a girl is learning to ride a bicycle and shouting every time she wobbles. Somewhere a boy is kissing his sweetheart under the first lilac of the season and forgetting the world exists. You strike a match. The flame catches, small and perfect, the same size it was the night the storm began. You carry it to the open window. Below, 19th Street is washed clean. No snow, no tunnels. Only wet cobblestones shining like they've been polished by angels. Mrs. Moretti is closing her bakery, humming. Mr. Goldstein locks his door and tips his hat to a policeman who tips back. A stray cat, the one everyone swears was frozen mid-leap, strolls across the street like he owns the block. You hold the candle high enough for the breeze to find it. Then you blow. The flame bows, flickers, and goes out. Smoke rises straight and true, the way it did the night you promised the future would be warmer. You watch it disappear into a sky so blue it looks like the storm was only a dream someone woke up from laughing. Somewhere below, a child asks, "Mama, will it ever snow like that again?" And the mother answers the way every mother in New York will answer for the next 137 years. "Yes, darling. But when it does, we'll knock twice, and the wall will knock back." You close the window. You do not lock it. You never will again.